Today, in 2023, we stand 50 years from the time our Constitution was being assembled. And I want to make a pointer to all of us as we look back 50 years from today. It is incumbent upon our generation to have a review holistically, and from the hindsight, we could refurbish what I relate to as a house called Papua New Guinea, so that it is refurbished and re-anchored and strengthened, and our generation pass it on to the next generation. 50 years on, a house has stood and withstood the weather, and withstood the passing of time. And if I think of back in my own life, I am a little bit over 50 years old as I stand and address you. Well, I am no longer a black-haired person I used to be. I'm no longer, my scalp is full of hair as it used to be. I'm moving on in life. What does it say? 50 years is a life of maturity. 50 years is no longer baby. And as 50 years old, we stand back and look on how far we've come, so that we pass on to the next generation a country that is better than where we are today. I do acknowledge in us the presence of our National Research Institute, head of our National Research Institute. He will affirm to you certain statistics that I'll be putting to you. In 1973, when our National Constitutional Planning Committee was going out to assemble our country into one sovereignty, our population was under 3 million. Our economy was under 5 billion. We had fewer educated population. Our University of Papua New Guinea, formed in 1966, was only seeing his third or fourth graduating class. Today, 50 years on, our population is anywhere between 10 to 17 billion, as some say, million, as some say. Our population has moved from simple life of almost no telephone to the cyber age technology. Today, communications we're making today are being spread real time. And most times, fake news, false news, fabricated news take the earlier stage, and truth comes later on. We live in a time of real-time communication. More population are aware and educated. Our economy is over 110 billion kina. Our public service structure has gone big. The expectations of our people is much bigger. More political parties. We've had Bougainville, who through a constitutionally sanctioned referendum has voted for independence. So the demand to relook at our country in totality is there. It is incumbent upon this generation to look at how far we've come and what we must pass on to the next generation. Every conversation in our country these days talk about Papua New Guinea must get better, and these are rightful conversations. But without taking stock deeply on how far we've come, our conversations is just as good as conversations and not pragmatic solutions found in how we should better our country going forward. Today is not time for us to be wasted. We speak 2 years just shy or short at the threshold of our nation achieving 50 years of nationhood. When we arrive on this podium 2 years from today in 2025, our generation must present to the country what our country must be going forward. And I'd like to say from our front, first and foremost, the process, we must entrench our democratic system of government. That underlines the core principle of our union, our unity as a nation of 1,000 tribes. We are the most diverse nation on the face of planet Earth. It is really our unity in democracy that has kept us together thus far. So in the midst of all this review that is going on from our front, let me say to the CLRC and all of us here in this room, that at no cost must we compromise our democracy. Our democracy must be entrenched in the process. Secondly, let me ask us, at no cost, there is no price to the value of our identity as a Christian nation. In our conversations going forward, Christianity and democracy must be entrenched. These are the two guiding principles that will govern our country going forward into the future and in the course. And I just want to appreciate CLRC for your clarity of focus. As it was CPC in 1973, it is now CLRC. You have already started the work in defining our country as a Christian country, and as we go forward into the future in our conversations, democracy and all tenets of democracy must be entrenched going forward. This review, whilst the conversation on Prime Minister's election takes the forefront, may I say, this must not be the only issue of engagement with the public. The three arms of government and their structure must be relooked at. Their independence and separation must be entrenched and augmented in the process. For instance, judiciary, an important part of the structure of our government, perhaps the better one, because in all manners of human activity, there are bound to be conflict. The entrenchment of the independence and functionality of our judiciary must emerge big, and also in this review going forward. And how and when do we separate Supreme Court from National Court? When do we put in a reviews court? What happens in the structure of judiciary? This also must be included in this review, because these are all fundamental part of our vibrant and robust democracy going forward. The question on our parliament system, unicameral or bicameral. What happens to the provincial government in the relation to the national government? All this must be looked at, so that we don't have wastes and wastes in our system. I'd like to believe that the 1995 organic review of the provincial government system, Mr. Minister, we arrived at a compromised outcome and not the outcome it's supposed to be. Let's relook at this one. We were supposed to completely overhaul what we thought we were overhauling, but we brought them into the national parliament. We need to relook at the relationship with national parliament and our provincial government systems, the conversation of autonomy, what it means by autonomy, the conversation on the special region of Bougainville. They voted for independence already. National awareness on their vote and the circumstances, the peculiar circumstances that led to the referendum must also be driven out, so that when the matter is brought to Parliament, there's a total clarity and no ambiguity on the Bougainville issue. These are relevant conversations that is contemporary for our generation to embark upon. And of course, the executive. Today, there's a convoluted relationship between the executive and the Parliament. The national Parliament has its guns on the executive, and the executive also has a influencing role over the legislator. The relationship between the executive arm and the legislature need to be relooked at. And some of you would have heard the Right Honourable Pius Winti in last Parliament making one of his famous speeches saying that the office of Prime Minister is sometimes held to ransom by parliamentarians. Separation of the executive and legislature needs to take place so that the executive is functional, but with accountability to the nation through the Parliament. Those conversations are relevant. Without removing the accountability aspect of the executive arm that is headed by the Prime Minister, how do we entrench stability into the office of Prime Minister? Those balances needs to be made so that whoever is in the office of Prime Ministership gets to work for the country instead of working for members of Parliament. These conversations need to take place. It is not about James Marape preserving the status quo. I will come and go, but this conversation is relevant so that 50 years from today, we are living in a country that is far developed, a country that remains in the quagmire of politics at all levels, at the national level politics, at the provincial level politics, at the LNC level politics, and politics in the public sector services, right down. It's about time this generation of Papua New Guineans, whether in the political space, or in the public service space, or in the private sector space, this generation must have a holistic review on how we've come in the last 50 years. Because the further we move into the future, the distant the memory of 1975, 1973, and the 1960s and 70s, the formative years of our country will be. Today we stand in the juncture of our nation's history where we still have abundance of known history with us. The more we move past, leaders will be redundant in the public space, or leaders will move on into eternity as the pioneers of our country are doing. Those of us who are still alive today, knowing what our country was in 1975 up till today and seeing the ups and downs of our present system, must work towards tidying our present system of government in totality and pass it better to the next generation. So into the future, the functionality of our public service has less impediments, the structure of our government has less impediments, and the clarity and separation of power between judiciary, executive, and legislature, and within itself, the accountability mechanisms built in, so that it is serving our people rather than serving the status quo of the day. Is that all right? And I repeat, rather than serving the status quo of the day. Today, it demands for us to look into this. And I just want to also come and give you an example of the need to look at how the office of Prime Ministership is arrived upon. Before 2002, we had average life of a government at almost 18 months, from 1975 to 2002. In 2002, our economy was 17 billion. So you really grew our economy from a 5 billion in 1975 to 2002. You grew it by only 12 billion in how many years? Almost 27 years or so we were independent until 2002. From 2002 to 2011, the economy grew to 42 billion. The Somali government, in the 9 years they were functioning, it grew to 42 billion. 9 years of political stability. For better or for worse, from 2011 or 2012 to 2018, our economy from 42 billion, it grew to 79 billion in economy. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a reward for political stability. But political stability must come in its proper context. And how do we arrive at that is a big question. This nation and the present generation of citizens must now do the work our fathers and mothers of our country did in 1973, 74, and 75. They prepared our nation for the union and sovereignty we have today. For us now, this generation, we are given a unique opportunity by God as we live in our country to have a look retrospectively on how we've come and the system that has carried us, and for us to throw in our recommendations that you are throwing on the coffee tables, on the think tanks and forums and WhatsApps. Today's CLRC presents you an opportunity to construct the future of your country you want, the country I want collectively, so that when we arrive at a podium in 2025, we have entrenched our democracy, we have entrenched our identity as a country of 1,000 tribes that is united by the love and unity of the Christian God we serve. But more importantly, the structure that has carried us, the three arms of government, and the functionality, and the types of how these arms of government are elected into office or appointed into office, are we looked at in totality, and the subservient subservient lower offices that serve beyond the heads of these three arms of government is relooked at in totality and worked upon, removing impediments that has clogged us and allowing for efficiency of a better system of government that should carry us beyond 50 years of nationhood. If the fathers of our nation and mothers of our nation have done it with a system that has carried us thus far, it is about time we relook at it and clean up what, in my view, relating to a building that had withstood the test of weather for 50 years. It's about time we maintain, refurbish, and clean it up so that you and me could pass a country that is befitting of living, that can carry a modern PNG into the future. I want to appreciate CLRC and your work. I look forward to giving you total support in as far as executive government support to this important review is concerned. I treat it very seriously and give high consideration, just as our forerunners did to our country in the formative years, in fact, leading up to independence. I treat this very, very seriously as we lead up to 50 years of nationhood. I want to present a report, and I think you don't need to ask me. The chairman has detailed what the reviews that are taking place and what other conversations that will be held with the people. But I want to conclude by saying, if there are other areas where we must consult our country, Chairman and your team at CLRC, let's also look into every area and embrace every area of engagement with our people, so that our people's voice could come back through the consultations that the UN is establishing, and we can all contribute to a better structure of government going forward for our country and for our people. Thank you very much. May God bless each and every one of you. We allow these conversations now to be open and for our people to be engaged.